The widow Patterson's carriage grew small against 3,000 empty acres. Marcus Cole watched from his porch, hat in hand, knowing he'd disappointed another good woman. Fifth one this month, October dusk painted the sky orange and purple. Frost gathered on fence posts like scattered diamonds. Behind Marcus, his grand house loomed against the fading light. 6 bedrooms, all empty. A dining table that seated 12, one lamp burning in one window. He'd offered supplies, not himself. Same as always. Much obliged for the offer, Mrs. Patterson, he'd said, but I've got no space in my life for a wife. The words came easy now. 8 years of practice made them smooth as riverstone. Polite enough to preserve her dignity, final enough to close the door. Marcus turned back toward his house. The wraparound porch his father built creaked under his boots. Inside. Supper waited on the long table. Beef stew, biscuits, coffee. Enough for one man eating alone at the end of furniture made for family gatherings that never happened. He ate without tasting, washed his plate without thinking, moved through his evening routine like a ghost haunting his own home. A man can own the whole territory and still have nothing worth keeping. The thought arrived unbidden. His father's voice, maybe, or his own conscience finally speaking up. Marcus stood at the kitchen window, staring out at the darkening land. That's when he noticed it. Smoke, thin gray thread rising from the east. 3 miles out, where the abandoned Morrison cabin sat rotting back into the earth. Someone had moved in without asking. His jaw tightened. Squatters, most likely. Drifters looking for free shelter before winter hit. He'd dealt with their kind before. A firm word usually sent them moving along. Tomorrow at dawn, he'd ride out and reclaim his solitude. His carefully controlled world didn't need strangers disrupting its emptiness. Marcus extinguished his single lamp. Darkness swallowed the grand house whole. Only that distant smoke glowed faintly against the night sky, like a question mark drawn in ash. A stranger had arrived, and Marcus Cole, master of 3,000 acres and nothing else, would send them away come morning. He climbed the stairs to his bedroom, passing 5 closed doors, each room furnished, each room waiting, each room empty as his heart. Morning frost crunched under his horse's hooves as Marcus rode toward the Morrison cabin. Aspens had turned golden overnight, their leaves trembling in the crisp breeze like small flames. He reined up at the property's edge and stopped breathing. An Apache woman stood on the sagging roof, hammer in hand, early 30s, maybe, dark hair braided down her back. She wore practical clothing, men's trousers and a heavy shirt, and she swung that hammer with practiced precision. Each strike drove a shingle home with purpose. She noticed him watching, stopped working, straightened her spine. No fear lived in those dark eyes. Only wariness. Only dignity earned through surviving whatever life had thrown at her. Marcus dismounted slowly, kept his hands visible. "Morning, ma'am. Name's Marcus Cole. I own the neighboring ranch." "I know who you are. Mr. Cole." Her voice carried steel wrapped in quiet calm. "I'm Kaya, widow of Thomas Morrison." Thomas Morrison. Marcus remembered him. Good man. Married an Apache woman against his family's wishes. Died of fever 3 winters back. "This cabin belonged to my husband's family," Kaya continued. She climbed down the ladder with careful grace. From her coat pocket, she produced a folded document. Legal deed. His family wanted nothing to do with property touched by his Apache wife. Thomas left it to me. Marcus examined the deed, official seal, proper signatures, legitimate as Sunday morning. "Deed's good," he admitted. "I know." She took it back, folded it precisely. "Now is there something you needed, Mr. Cole? Or did you ride 3 miles just to inspect my paperwork?" He looked past her at the cabin. Roof wouldn't survive serious snowfall. Even with her repairs, chimney mortar crumbled like old bread. Windows lacked proper sealing. The whole structure begged for mercy. "I could send materials," Marcus offered. Lumber, nails, proper shingles. Winter's coming hard this year. Her expression hardened. I don't need charity, Mr. Cole. I need to be left alone. The dismissal stung more than it should have. Marcus touched his hat brim. Meant no offense, ma'am. He mounted his horse, ready to retreat to his empty kingdom. But as he turned, something caught his eye. A garden patch, freshly turned earth despite the late season. And growing there, already sprouting green against brown soil, winter wheat. The land don't care about your past, only what you plant in it. She wasn't just surviving. She was building, planning for spring while autumn deepened, creating future from nothing. Marcus rode away slowly, his mind unsettled. 3,000 acres he owned, 6 bedrooms he maintained, a table for 12 he kept polished, and he'd forgotten how to plant anything worth growing. Sunday morning arrived wrapped in gray clouds and growing tension. Marcus sat in his family pew at the Presbyterian church, surrounded by neighbors whose faces soured like week-old milk. The Morrison family had arrived early. Old Mrs. Morrison, matriarch since her husband's death, sat ramrod straight. Her surviving sons flanked her like soldiers. Reverend Whitfield hadn't even finished his opening prayer when the whispers started. He'd Apache squaw living on Morrison land. Deeds probably forged. Ain't natural. A woman alone out there. Marcus kept his eyes forward, but his ears burned. After service, the Morrison boys cornered Sheriff Tucker on the church steps. Marcus positioned himself near enough to hear. That woman's trespassing. The eldest Morrison's son declared, Our family's property by rights. She's got papers, Sheriff Tucker said carefully. Thomas left her that cabin legal-like. Papers can be forged. Everyone knows Indians can't be trusted. Mrs. Morrison dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. My Thomas. God rest him. Wasn't in his right mind when he married that woman. Any document he signed regarding her is suspect. The sheriff rubbed his jaw. Might need to investigate. Make sure everything's proper. Marcus's stomach tightened. He knew that deed was legitimate. He'd seen it himself. But this town didn't care about legitimacy when prejudice offered easier answers. He rode home beneath heavy skies. Snow would come tonight. First real storm of the season. Inside his house, Marcus built a fire he didn't need, warmth he couldn't feel. He paced his empty rooms until darkness fell, then stopped before the mantel. There, face down where he'd laid it 8 years ago, sat a daguerreotype in a silver frame. His hands trembled as he lifted it. Sarah, his Sarah, dead of influenza while he was away buying cattle. He'd left her in spring, healthy and laughing. Returned in summer to find her grave already growing grass. 8 years of punishing himself. 8 years of turning away every woman who showed interest. If he couldn't protect Sarah, what right had he to promise another woman anything? Your Sarah would want you living. Marcus, not just breathing, his own thought, her imagined voice, the truth he'd been avoiding. Sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is stay when everyone expects him to ride away. Marcus made his decision before dawn. He loaded his wagon with lumber, nails, proper shingles, glass for windows. Everything that cabin needed to survive winter. Snow began falling as he rode toward Kaya's property. Fat white flakes drifting down like heaven's own judgment. He'd chosen his side. Help an innocent woman or let the town's prejudice destroy her. No middle ground existed. The town wouldn't forgive easily. Marcus Cole, respected rancher, taking up with an Apache widow. Tongues would wag, doors would close, let them. His wagon wheels carved dark lines through the whitening ground. Behind him, his grand house faded into the storm. Ahead, smoke rose from Kaya's chimney like a beacon. Marcus Cole rode toward trouble with his eyes wide open. 2 weeks of shared labor changed everything Marcus thought he knew about himself. November deepened around them. Morning frost painted the ground silver. Afternoon sun warmed their backs as they worked. Evenings arrived earlier, colder, pushing them toward the cabin's growing warmth. Marcus arrived each day after tending his own ranch. Kaya accepted his help but maintained careful boundaries. They worked in comfortable silence mostly, speaking when necessary, learning each other through action rather than words. His hands, soft from counting money and signing documents, grew calloused and capable. She taught him proper technique, her patience surprising him. "The beam goes here," she'd say, guiding his efforts. "Feel how the wood wants to rest, don't force it. Let it find its place." Marcus discovered she knew carpentry better than most men. Her late husband had taught her well, and she'd improved on his lessons. But her knowledge extended far beyond construction. She read weather signs he couldn't see. "Storm coming tomorrow," she'd announce. And sure enough, snow would fall. She knew which plants healed fever, which roots eased pain, which bark made tea that settled troubled stomachs. Her education included mathematics, literature, 3 languages. Thomas believed ignorance was the only true poverty, she explained one afternoon. "He taught me everything he knew." Marcus realized he'd been the ignorant one, assuming less of her because of her heritage, seeing her need rather than her capability. A man's worth ain't measured by his land, but by who he stands beside when standing costs him something. The cost grew daily, at the general store. Conversation stopped when Marcus entered. Mrs. Whitfield mentioned seeing him ride toward the Morrison place again. The Presbyterian minister asked if Marcus needed spiritual counsel. "Your reputation precedes your actions lately," the minister warned. "People talk." Let them talk, Marcus thought. What had reputation given him? 6 empty bedrooms and a table for 12 that seated 1? His foreman started avoiding his eyes. Ranch hands whispered when they thought he couldn't hear. The banker who handled his accounts shook his head sadly when Marcus came in, but the cabin transformed. Roof now solid and waterproof. Chimney repointed, drawing perfectly. Windows sealed tight against winter's bite. A proper door that closed without gaps. One evening, as cold stars emerged above them, Marcus and Kaya sat on her completed porch, sharing coffee. The cabin behind them glowed with warmth. Smoke rose straight and true from the chimney, shelter becoming home. "Thomas saw me as a person, not a people," Kaya said softly, staring into her cup. "Rare that his family never forgave him for it. I'm beginning to understand the difference," Marcus replied. She looked at him then, really looked. Those dark eyes seeing straight through his defenses. "Are you? Mr. Cole, are you really?" Before he could answer, movement caught his eye. The sheriff, riding past slowly, watching them, his face unreadable, his presence ominous. The storm was gathering. Marcus felt it in his bones. Soon he'd have to choose between comfort and conviction. The cabin stood solid now. But the real test hadn't begun. Mid-November brought deep cold that settled into bones and wouldn't leave. But inside Kaya's cabin, warmth radiated from the repaired hearth. And something else warmed Marcus in ways he hadn't felt in 8 years. He sat by her fire one afternoon, Sarah's photograph heavy in his coat pocket. He'd carried it here without knowing why. Perhaps the dead needed witnessing too. Kaya noticed his distance. She had a way of seeing what others missed. "What burden do you carry, Mr. Cole?" she asked, setting down her mending. "You're here, but you're not here. Not fully." Marcus's hand went to his pocket. His fingers found the frame's edge, smooth and familiar as grief itself. "There was a woman," he began. "Sarah. We were engaged. 8 years ago. Influenza took her while I was away buying cattle. 3 weeks gone. Came back to find her buried already. Grass growing on her grave." Kaya said nothing, just listened. No judgment in her expression. No pity either. Just patient attention. "I should have been there," Marcus continued, his voice roughening. "Should have stayed. My wealth couldn't save her. My presence might have. Or it might not have," Kaya said gently. "Fever takes who it takes. Presence is no armor against death. Still, I failed her. You failed yourself. Mr. Cole, you've been punishing yourself ever since. Every woman you've turned away, every empty room you maintain, every meal you eat alone, punishment. Her words struck like stones against glass, cracks spreading through his defenses. Grief is the price of love, she continued, but guilt is the thief of living. Your Sarah loved your heart, not your protection. She would want that heart to beat for someone again. Marcus stared into the fire, seeing flames dance like memories. Sunday came with fresh tension. The sermon focused on unequal yoking and maintaining proper Christian society. Every eye found Marcus at some point, every glance carried judgment. Afterward, the mayor pulled him aside. People respect you, Cole. Your father built that respect through proper living. Don't throw away his legacy on charity that looks like something else. Charity. The word burned. That afternoon, Marcus rode to Kaya's cabin with his mind full of solutions. Safe solutions. Proper solutions. Perhaps you should come work at my ranch, he offered, standing in her doorway. As a housekeeper, it would be proper and respectable. No one could fault. Kaya raised her hand, stopping him. She stood slowly, her dignity radiating like heat from forged metal. Mr. Cole, let me ask you plainly. Her dark eyes held his, unwavering. Do you want a wife, or just shelter? The question struck his core like lightning finding iron. Silence stretched between them, seconds becoming eternity. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it. What could he say? He'd been offering arrangements, not commitment, protection without partnership, presence without promise. He swallowed hard. I don't know if I know the difference anymore. Kaya nodded slowly. Something like sadness crossed her features. Then don't offer what you can't name. She closed her door gently, not a slam, worse than a slam. A quiet click of finality. Marcus rode home through falling snow, her question burning in his chest. Did he want a wife, or just shelter from his loneliness? Had he been protecting her, or protecting himself from truly risking his heart again? A man who can't speak his heart plain, deserve to have it heard. The snow fell harder. His horse found the way home. Marcus barely noticed. Kaya's question consumed him, demanding an answer he didn't yet possess. Early December arrived with bitter wind and bitter judgment both. Marcus entered the general store seeking supplies. What he found instead was a wall of hostile faces. The mayor stood near the counter, Sheriff Tucker beside him. The Presbyterian minister, the banker, the Morrison family, and a dozen prominent citizens, all waiting, all watching. Ah, Cole, the mayor said. We'd hoped you'd come by. Town matters to discuss. Marcus felt the trap closing. Old Mrs. Morrison stepped forward, handkerchief clutched in her gnarled fingers. The Morrison family has filed formal complaint. Mr. Cole, that Apache woman's deed is forged. Everyone knows Thomas wasn't right in his mind when he married her. Any documents are suspect. The deed is legitimate, Marcus said firmly. I've examined it myself. Territorial seal, proper signatures. Your judgment is clouded, the mayor interrupted. Everyone sees it. That woman has bewitched you. Sheriff Tucker cleared his throat. I'll be investigating the deed's authenticity. Until then. Mrs. Kaya must vacate Morrison property. She's given 1 week. 1 week. Marcus stepped forward. She's done nothing wrong. The deed is legal. You're persecuting an innocent woman because of her blood. We're protecting our community, the minister said softly, and protecting you from yourself. Marcus, your father wouldn't have approved. Marcus looked around for allies. His foreman stood with the crowd, studying his boots. The banker shook his head sadly. Even the doctor, who once praised Marcus's generosity, remained silent. When the whole town rides one direction, sometimes a man's got to ride alone the other way. This isn't justice, Marcus said, his voice shaking with anger. This is prejudice wearing a badge. Strong words from a man who's forgotten his place. The mayor replied coolly, Think carefully. Cole, you've got a reputation to maintain, a legacy to protect. Walk away from this Apache situation before you lose everything your father built. Marcus left without his supplies. His hands trembled as he mounted his horse. He rode straight to Kaya's cabin. What he found there shattered him. She was already packing. Her few belongings sat in neat piles. The cabin that had become home looked like a stranger's dwelling again. Impersonal. Transitional. News travels fast, she said without looking up. Small towns have big mouths. Kaya, don't. The deed is legitimate. We can fight this. She finally looked at him. Dignity unbroken despite everything. I told you they would talk. I warned you. And now you've damaged your reputation helping someone they'll never accept. I don't care about reputation. Don't you? Her voice stayed gentle but cut deep. I won't stay where I'm not wanted, Mr. Cole. And I won't be the reason you lose everything. You're not the reason, aren't I? She returned to her packing. Your town sees an Apache woman as trouble. You offered me shelter, arrangement, safety, all kind offers. But I asked you a question, and you couldn't answer it. Marcus stood helpless. What could he say? He'd fought with words and lost. His wealth meant nothing against collective prejudice. His position couldn't protect her from their fear. He watched her pack her few possessions and realized he was failing another woman he'd come to care for. That night, alone in his 6-bedroom house, Marcus faced his reflection in the dark window. Wealthy, respected, powerful, and utterly useless when it mattered most. The lamp on his desk flickered and died. Oil exhausted. Darkness swallowed him whole. 3 days passed like 3 years. Marcus tended his ranch mechanically, fed horses without seeing them, mended fences without feeling the wire, ate meals without tasting food. His house felt more empty than ever. Though nothing had changed within its walls, everything had changed within him. He'd answered Kaya's question with silence, with inaction. The coward's response. She'd asked if he wanted a wife or just shelter from loneliness, and he'd proven that he wanted neither badly enough to speak truth. On the 3rd night, Marcus walked his property at midnight. Moon hung full and bright, casting silver light across snow-covered fields. His breath clouded in the bitter cold. 3,000 acres. All his father's dream made manifest. 6 bedrooms in a grand house. A table for 12. Respect from the community. Wealth enough for 3 lifetimes. And none of it mattered. None of it meant anything because he'd been living his father's life, not his own. Building his father's legacy while his own heart withered like unpicked fruit. Home ain't a place. It's the people you'd ride through hell to get back to. Marcus stopped walking. The truth crystallized in his mind like ice forming on still water. He didn't want shelter from loneliness. He wanted Kaya, not his housekeeper, not his charity case, not his proper arrangement. He wanted her sharp wisdom that saw through pretense, her quiet strength that built homes from nothing, her dignity that bowed to no one's prejudice. He wanted to be the man who deserved her respect. Marcus returned to his house, the decision forming with each step. He climbed his porch stairs and stopped. A package sat by his door. Inside, a small leather pouch. Winter wheat seeds. A note in Kaya's careful handwriting for planting tomorrow. Even in frozen ground, seeds know their purpose. Do you? She was still at her cabin, still giving him chances, not waiting for rescue, waiting for truth. Do I know my purpose? Marcus whispered to the seeds in his palm. His fingers closed around them. I do now. He spent the night preparing, writing letters to the mayor, to the sheriff, to the town, reviewing Kaya's deed again, preparing his legal arguments. But more than documents and evidence, he prepared his heart. He would speak truth regardless of cost. He would stand for what was right, even if standing alone. He would answer her question so clearly that no one could mistake his meaning. As dawn broke over the mountains, Marcus opened every curtain in his house. Pale winter sun streamed into rooms that had known only darkness for years. He lit lamps in each bedroom, all 6 now glowing. His house would no longer be shelter for one man's grief. It would become something more. Whatever tomorrow brought, today was Sunday. The entire community would gather at church. Marcus saddled his best horse. The seeds rested in his pocket, warm against his heart. He rode toward town with purpose burning in his chest. Today, the whole community would hear truth spoken aloud. The church was full, every pew occupied, Sunday best on display, hymnals open, Reverend Whitfield preparing his sermon. Marcus entered late. Every eye found him immediately. He didn't take his usual seat in the front pew. Instead, he walked down the center aisle, boots echoing on wooden floorboards. He stopped at the front, turned to face the congregation. 200 faces stared back, some curious, some hostile, some confused. "Reverend," Marcus said clearly, "may I address the congregation? It concerns a matter of Christian conscience." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The minister hesitated, glancing at the mayor. Finally, he nodded. Marcus took a breath. His father's voice echoed in his memory. A man's word is his bond. Break that, and he's got nothing left worth keeping. "You've asked me to step back from helping Mrs. Kaya," Marcus began. "You've called her presence improper, her deeds suspicious, my judgment clouded. I'm here to speak plainly, as a man whose word should still mean something in this town." He held up the deed. "This document is legitimate, authenticated by the territorial office, legal, binding, unquestionable. The Morrison complaint is false. That's fact." He lowered the deed. "But that's not why I'm standing here." Silence. Complete. "I'm standing here because you've asked the wrong question. You ask if my reputation will survive helping an Apache widow. You should ask if my soul will survive abandoning her." The mayor shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Morrison's mouth fell open. 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Kaya asked me something that cut to my core. She asked if I wanted a wife or just shelter. I didn't know how to answer then. I do now. Marcus felt his voice strengthening. Truth did that, gave power where fear had stolen it. I want a wife. I want Kaya, not because she needs my protection, but because I need her truth. She sees what matters while I've been blind. She plans for tomorrow while I've buried myself in yesterday. She builds from nothing while I've let wealth make me empty. Gasps, whispers. His foreman's jaw dropped. Judge me if you must. Shun me if you choose. But I will not abandon a good woman to your prejudice. And I will not hide my heart behind propriety. Not anymore. Some of you knew my father. He taught me that a man's word is his bond. Well, here's my word. I love that woman. And I'll stand beside her whether you approve or not. Silence stretched. Then, movement. The doctor rose to his feet. Marcus speaks true. I've examined Mrs. Kaya. She's a healer of remarkable skill, more knowledge than most men with medical degrees. Another rise. The school teacher. Her husband Thomas was a good man. His widow deserves the respect he earned. One by one, a handful of voices joined. Not many. Enough. The mayor stood last, his face unreadable for long moments. Your father was a man of his word, Cole. Seems you are too. He glanced at the sheriff. Mrs. Kaya's deed is legitimate. She may stay on her property unmolested. This matter is closed. Not unanimous victory. Some faces remained hard with disapproval, but enough hearts had opened. Marcus touched his hat brim to the congregation. Much obliged. He walked out of that church taller than he'd walked in. 1 week passed. Christmas Eve approached with gentle snow and gentler hope. Marcus rode toward Kaya's cabin carrying winter wheat seeds and an answer 8 years overdue. He found her on her porch, tending herbs she'd planted along the south wall, winter varieties that thrived in cold, always building, always growing, always planning for tomorrow. The cabin stood solid behind her, chimney drawing perfectly, smoke rising straight and true, windows sealed tight, door closing without gaps, a home she'd built with her determination, and his offered help. She watched him approach but didn't speak. Marcus dismounted slowly, took off his hat, held it in both hands like a supplicant. "I owe you a proper answer," he said, "to your question." Kaya studied him for long moments, then nodded toward her door. Coffee's brewing inside. Warmth wrapped around him, not just from the hearth, from everything she'd created here. Purpose made tangible, hope given form. She poured coffee. They sat at her small table. 2 cups, 2 people. Enough. "I spoke to the town," Marcus began. "Publicly, declared my intentions. The mayor accepted your deed as legitimate. The Morrison claim is dismissed." I heard. Her expression remained careful. "That took courage." "No, that took too long." He set down his cup. "I should have spoken sooner. Should have answered your question the moment you asked it." And now, Marcus reached into his pocket, drew out the seeds she'd sent him, placed them on the table between them. "You asked if I wanted a wife or just shelter. I know my answer now." She waited, patient as earth waiting for rain. "I don't want shelter, Kaya. I want a wife. I want you. Not to rescue, not to protect, not to solve my loneliness. I want to build something with you. Plant seeds that outlive us both. Make a home, not from my wealth or your strength alone, but from what we grow together." His words hung in the warm air between them. Kaya looked at the seeds, then at him, her dark eyes searching his face for truth. "You've learned to name what you want," she said finally. "That's rare. And you spoke truth when silence was safer. That's rarer still. Learn from someone who plants winter wheat in autumn." A smile touched her lips, small but real. "I'll be your wife, Marcus Cole, not because I need your land or your name, but because you finally see me as a person, not a people, and because you're learning to plant for tomorrow." He took her hand. No grand gesture, just 2 people choosing partnership built on honesty and respect. They walked outside together as dusk settled, Christmas Eve arriving soft and peaceful. Snow fell gently around them. Marcus looked toward his ranch house in the distance. Every window glowed with lamplight. 6 bedrooms, all lit, hope in every room. "You did that," he said. "You left the lamps for me to light." She squeezed his hand. "The house was always ready. You just needed to open the doors." Below them, her winter wheat showed green shoots against the white snow. Life persisting, hope growing in frozen ground. "Home ain't a place," Marcus said softly. "No." Kaya agreed. "It's the people worth staying for." First star appeared over the mountains. Then another, heaven bearing witness to promises made below. "Every storm ends with sunrise," Marcus whispered. "Every broken heart can rebuild." Kaya added, "Every sinner deserves mercy." They stood together on her porch, watching night settle over the valley. His grand house glowing in the distance, her solid cabin warm behind them, between them. The space where 2 lives would now grow intertwined. Winter deepened around them, but spring waited beneath the frozen ground. And in that small cabin, in that grand house, in the space between 2 hearts finally honest, shelter had become home. Seeds planted, purpose found, love chosen. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. The town wouldn't change overnight, but they would face it together. Plant for the future together. Build something lasting together. For now, this moment held everything. Snow falling softly, Stars emerging slowly. Two hearts beating hopefully. Home at last.